Don't worry if you felt you were tripping on acid this week in the NFL because, man, we all felt that in this insane Week 6. So let's just try and break this down the best we can. How's it going, everybody? I'm Jason of Jason Drama here, and I'm bringing you guys today my Week 6 NFL breakdown. So let's go ahead and break down each of these games. So we're going to start off, as always, Thursday Night Football, the Broncos versus the Chiefs. The Chiefs winning this one by a score of 19-8. This game was just a sloppy game all around, and Kansas City did what they needed to get another win, but it was very, very sloppy for them. They were playing sloppily, but the refs are going to help them as much as they can, so we know Kansas City is just going to win. Meanwhile, Denver, able to do a solid job to stay in this, but they just were unable to get the offense going whenever they truly needed it to get going, kicking the high gear. Up next, we go to a London game where absolutely nobody wanted to win, and this was one of the sloppiest games I have seen in quite some time. It was Baltimore domination in the first half, and then they almost choked it to Tennessee. Tennessee did not want to win this game in the first half. In the second half, they said, hey, maybe we should try to win this game. They start rallying back, but then they come up short because they start falling apart. Just two teams wanting to collapse at the same time, and who was going to collapse last was going to be the winner. Up next, we have the Washington Commanders beating the Atlanta Falcons 24-16. This game, it was just where Washington just stayed one step ahead of Atlanta. Everything Atlanta did, Washington was already one step ahead of them in the scoring department, in the just play calling department. Washington was just one step ahead of Atlanta everywhere, and Washington is just such a baffling team this year. It's hard to really judge them because they play up to Philadelphia, they completely choke against the Bears, and then they go ahead and beat the Falcons and make it look easy. So what is the true reality of this team? I cannot say what that is right now. It's a tough team to read this year. Meanwhile, Atlanta, they just did not really do much. And it's hard to judge this game in general because they lost to a team that played up against the Eagles, but then lost to the Bears. I mean, what do you make of this? What do you make of this looking at it as a fan? I mean, because this team is a team for Washington that'll play up, play down. They're like the Steelers of the past. They'd play up to good teams, they'd play down to bad teams. It's hard to judge. Up next, I was about to break this into its own video, but I decided not to. I decided I could not really do it justice in its own video. The Minnesota Vikings versus the Chicago Bears. Tank Bowl number 2. The Vikings winning this one 19-13. This was a back and forth affair. It was one shoots, the other ties. One shoots, the other ties. It was back and forth the entire game, where the lead just kept going back and forth. It was tie game, then it was lead, then tie game again. And Chicago, you lost it on probably the biggest muffed punt you've ever seen. In the fourth quarter, or in the second quarter, going into half, 1 second left, and or a couple seconds left, you muff a punt, allowing a touchdown for Minnesota. That was very embarrassing. Very embarrassing. Minnesota, on the other hand, you won the game, but you lost the war. You know you ain't going to bring back Kirk Cousins. You know that. You're not going to re-sign Kirk. So go and tank and get Williams or Penix. One of those two. And you're not doing it. You just completely blew it by winning this game, honestly. You're probably now going to be looking at somewhere in the lower top 5, if I'm being honest. Up next, we got another defensive standoff. The Seattle Seahawks going to the jungle and playing the Bengals. The Bengals pulling this one off by a final score of 17-13. And man, it was a tight defensive game. And ultimately, though, Cincinnati just did not utilize Ja'Marr Chase in the red zone. They did not get him in the end zone. They got him the ball. He got 80 yards. But you didn't use him in the red zone, which was a key factor in this game as to why they didn't score a lot of points. They ended up getting the win, but they could have won big time if they had gotten the ball to Ja'Marr Chase. Meanwhile, Seattle, I mean, what are you doing? What are you doing, Seattle? You have a chance to do big things. And then you have DK Metcalf just randomly after the plays, just talking over cornerbacks like it's nothing. First it was Ahkello Witherspoon week 1. Last week he did it to one of the Bengals. I mean, DK needs to get something in check over there. Because, man, that is not the way to do it. The next game we would talk about here, but I already made its own video on it. The San Francisco 49ers falling to the Cleveland Browns, 19-17. Let's move on. Up next, we have the New Orleans Saints falling to the Houston Texans by a score of 20-13. And, man, This was just a game where Houston was able to keep the lead once they earned it. New Orleans tried to crawl back into it, but Houston took the lead and just did not look back at all. They looked solid, and CJ having another solid day, despite the interception, his first of his career. He is still looking like a very good quarterback in this league. 2 touchdowns this game to 1 interception. Pretty solid. On the season, I think he's 8 or 10 to 1, something like that. I mean, that is insane for a rookie quarterback in his first year on a team with minimal weapons. Throw him on the Niners, throw him on a team with a lot of offensive firepower. Oh my God, you got a good team right there. Meanwhile, New Orleans, you're inconsistent, you're struggling, you'll go win 1 week big, then you'll come back down to earth the next, then you'll go and win big the next week after that. You gotta be consistent if you want to be a playoff contender, New Orleans. You're not playing consistent, so in my mind, you're not really a strong playoff contender because you're not playing consistent. Up next, we have a Jacksonville Jaguars domination as they hosted the Indianapolis Colts by a score of 37-20. And man, Jacksonville took a big lead and they just did not look back at all, never giving Indianapolis a chance to do anything. A very good win for this Jacksonville team, and they are looking good. Going up against the Saints team, it's been inconsistent. We'll see what happens there. Meanwhile, Indianapolis, you need Anthony Richardson. You were without him today, and now he's going likely into season-ending surgery to repair the shoulder. So you're going to need some help. You are not going to do anything this year. Just treat this year as a year of seeing what you got in the weapons department, see what you got on defense, see what your offensive line looks like, and try to build those areas this coming offseason. Up next, we got a game that looked like it was going to be a blowout one way, and it ended up being a blowout the other way. The Carolina Panthers falling to the Miami Dolphins 42-21. The Panthers jumping out on this one to a quick 14-0 lead. And man, we thought the Dolphins would be hung on the ropes, but they fought back. The Dolphins faced the adversity that was presented to them. They fought back, rallied hard, and said, no, we're not going down today. We're going to keep on pushing. And they did just that, looking really good at the end. Whereas Carolina just completely fell apart. Beautiful job by Miami in that. Up next, we have the collapsing Roman Empire going up against the Vegas Raiders, where the Raiders win 21-17. The Raiders had a hot start. They started playing really well, almost falling off at the end, but doing enough to get the win. Whereas the Patriots, they did a good job staying in it, but Mac Jones wasn't able to bring it in whenever he needed to most. He couldn't do much on the offensive side, and it just was a struggle for this Patriots team. Up next, we have domination in the Bay. The Buccaneers falling to the Detroit Lions 20-6. Man, Tampa Bay just shut up and took the beating that was given to them. And Detroit just said, we're coming out, we're the dominant team, and we are winning this one big. And that's exactly what they did, winning by 2 scores, not really giving Tampa Bay much of a chance. Now, Tampa Bay's defense did look solid, holding the Lions' offense. But it just was not enough whenever your offense only puts up 6 points and Baker starts off with a pass that is tipped. That would have been a huge potential touchdown pass, but instead gets tipped for an interception to start the game. That just killed all momentum that this team had, and they just could not overcome that. Up next, we had a game with a close first half that ended up in sheer domination at the end of it. The Arizona Cardinals falling to the Los Angeles Rams 26-9. And in this one, man, the Rams were down going into half. The Cardinals played well. They traded field goals back and forth, taking a 9-6 lead into the half. And then they didn't do a single thing in the second half, and the Rams just completely steamrolled, putting up 20 points in the second half alone. The Rams looking really good right now. Yeah, you might be without Kyren Williams and potentially without your third stringer there, as both of them are dealing with some injuries. But we'll have to see. Ronnie Rivers, by the way, the third stringer. But anyway, the Rams looking solid, but the Cardinals, yeah, you had things going, but your offense has to have a response. You need to have a response on offense and defense in the second half. You can't just play one half of football and call it a game. That's just what Arizona did. Up next, we got a game that was already covered in its own video. The Philadelphia Eagles losing to the New York Jets 20-14. Let's move on. Same deal for this next game. We covered it in its own video yesterday. The New York Giants losing to the Buffalo Bills 9-14. So let's go ahead and move on to Monday Night Football. Last but not least for this video, we had the incredible back and forth game that was Monday Night Football between the Dallas Cowboys and the Los Angeles Chargers. The Cowboys winning this one by a score of 20-17. And man, this was back and forth, and it just was constant. It started off with a 7-0 Chargers lead. The Cowboys responded in turn to get 7-7. Then eventually the Chargers put up a field goal. The Cowboys respond in turn. The Cowboys get a touchdown. Then the Chargers get a touchdown. The Cowboys ending up with a field goal to win the game. And man, Dallas, this was a big statement game for you. It showed that you're able to go up against a high-powered offense and be able to semi-shut it down. Now, your offense also did look solid this game. Your offense did all of the scoring. You put up 20 points offensively. That is one of the highest totals I have seen from you this season, where you didn't get points off of takeaways. It was just sheer getting points. So, man, Dallas just looking better. Their offense is looking more convincing at this point. And the Chargers just fell flat completely. I mean, Justin Herbert did not look comfortable. He did not look solid. He didn't really look great in that game. And that's why the Chargers lost. They're way too reliant on Herbert. Well, that's about going to do it for me today. If you guys did like, don't forget to smash like and subscribe. It does help me out a whole lot. It tells me that I'm making content that you guys enjoy and that I should keep doing what I'm doing. Also, if you haven't already, check out our... We'll go ahead and post the Jets game here, the Jets recap over here from last week. If you want to get a little more in depth as to how that game went so poorly for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I guess with that, I will see you guys later. Peace out and have a good one.